Hello and welcome to the Gremlins garden. Here I've got my list of all of the crops that I've started for easy reference. And here I've got a list of what crops can be started now at the end of August. Here are the seeds that I'm going to be sowing this week. Also, now is a good time to be considering ordering your spring bulbs and corms and other bulbs, edible bulbs that you would be planting around this time, such as garlic, both hardneck and softneck. The main difference is that hardneck sends up the flower that's sort of also ornamental. It comes in different colors, and the flowers are edible and have a light garlic taste. The softneck garlic really just sends up leaves before you pick it. You can also be doing shallots and spring onion sets. Good sources to buy these would be Irish Eyes and Territorial Seed. And then if you're interested, it's also the time to be buying your crocus, hyacinth, daffodil, tulip, peony, other ornamental bulbs and corms that go in the ground now, need to be exposed to cold in order to grow well. And it's also cheaper to buy them as bulbs and corms and do them yourself than it is to buy them already started at the end of or at the beginning of the season in spring. You can plant them directly in the ground right now, or you can plant them in pots and put them in a safe place, such as inside of a cage, under netting, in a greenhouse, until it's time to transplant them, or until you know where you want to transplant them, in case you have mole and squirrel issues, because sometimes they can dig up and eat the bulbs. Alright, let's take a look at how our plants are doing. These guys were started at the beginning of August. Some kale. You can see the seed leaves down here. We don't really need those guys anymore now that they've got their own leaves. And you can also see the difference in size. These plants have been kept in the trays that they were started in, and so there's less root space for them to grow. So plants started at the same time, but given root space, are larger. Here's a good example of why you want to put your plants up into larger containers before it's too late. Right here I have 2 tomatoes that were planted at exactly the same time. The one on the right was put up into a 1 gallon, while the one on the left was kept inside of a 4-inch. You can see the one in the 1 gallon is much larger. It has fruits on it. The one that was kept in the 4-inch container has no fruits, no flowers. It's looking actually really sad, mostly purple. It's showing a nutrient deficiency, and it is being stunted because its roots are not allowed any more space. It cannot grow any bigger. I've got the lacy Phacelia here. If you planted your seeds close together like this, you can either use your hands to dig them out, or you can use a pair of chopsticks if that's easier for you to help loosen the soil, being careful not to damage the roots. Now these would have ideally been transplanted apart from each other probably a week ago, but it's still not too late. It's just we're going to rip a few roots in the process. But since the plants are bigger, they can deal with it better. So I like to do it by just gently sort of wiggling your fingers through the soil. You can also lightly sort of drop them a little bit, tease out the roots. If you move very carefully, you can actually feel the change in tension when you've broken a root, so you can know that you need to be a little bit more careful if it feels that way. You want to work relatively quickly if the weather is warm so that the little roots don't have time to dry out. is the day after uppotting the Phacelia. It's starting to perk back up and look normal again. If you take a look, you'll see we've got a little bit of space down here from where the seed leaves came out, and there's still like a little bit of, I guess, trunk or stem down here. I've never had an issue with planting up to the seed leaves here. I've never had an issue with rot, and I usually do it to help stabilize the plant. Actually, one year my mom and I were planting broccoli and we completely broke the stem on one, and it was hanging on by just a couple of threads. We stuck it back together and planted that portion underneath the soil and packed it around tight around the broken part, and the broccoli actually was able to heal itself, and it made a head of broccoli that year. These are the fava beans. These are some really small starts for elephant garlic that are coming off of the main bulb. They've got a little bit of root on them, but the tops have died back, as you can see. They've turned tan, they're drying out, they're falling down. That means it's time to pull the garlic up out of the ground. And I could either eat these, or I can plant them in about a month or two for harvesting next year, which is what I'm going to do. So for now I need to set them out to dry somewhere in a, partially sunny area, but not scorching so that they get burnt, for about a couple days to a week. To dig up that garlic I used this hori-hori, and I went several inches outside of where the tops were coming from and loosened the soil. If I had put the hori-hori straight in at the base of the stem, I would probably have damaged the garlic, opening it up for infection and making it less likely to survive through the winter. Also, I'm not always vigilant about getting out all of the pieces, because this way I don't really have to plant it again in this area, it'll just come back. Here's the cleaned up harvest. You'll notice the cloves are smaller than what you traditionally see with elephant garlic, because I didn't harvest them last year, and so they all just bulbed out, and they were in less space than they wanted, and so it stunted them, so they didn't get quite as big as they would have if they had enough root space. I like to do this over on the grass so I can wipe off dirt, sort of check on the bulbs, see if there's any that are sort of rotten or have holes in them. Those ones I don't want to plant. These ones are looking mostly good. Out on your tropical plants, now's a good time to start hardening them off for the lower light that is indoors. If you have citrus trees that aren't hardy in our winter and you need to bring them inside, you'll probably notice that they'll drop all of their leaves if you move them from an area of high light to an area of low light. So you can begin hardening them off now by putting them in dappled shade for part of the day and then longer during the day, so that they don't completely drop all of their leaves when you move them inside.